Thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon.
Hello.
Interesting perspective here. A whole cannabis college. Please take us through exactly how this will work.
Well, you know, everything starts with knowledge. And cannabis has been prohibited in South Africa for nearly 100 years. So what we find when we go down into the rural areas of Mpondoland is we find that there's not much traditional knowledge left. Yes, there are some older people who still have the knowledge from way back when, and some younger people who are catching up with the help of the internet. But there's a large body of people who have the potential to exploit the cannabis industry, who just simply don't have the knowledge because of this gap from 100 years. So I think that we have to applaud the Office of the Premier of the Eastern Cape. He is by far the most enlightened when it comes to cannabis, and to introduce this right in the beginning, before cannabis is even legal in South Africa, and to introduce this concept that we have to train our people first is really, really important. And it can be absorbed into all levels of education.
Yeah.
All the way from universities, obviously with the very academic and science-based stuff, down to FET colleges, CETA accredited courses, and down to one-day workshops for your normal public who just want to grow something in their backyard.
Well, let's talk about this right now and the legalities surrounding this, because the truth is, cannabis so far, right, you're allowed to consume it within the confines of the home, right, if you're an ordinary individual. So the parameters say consume within the home front, right? It's not necessarily one such where you can now trade and actually have business as such, hence why we've got a lot of people that are still getting arrested. So then if you have a college that is set up to enlighten and inform people, people would want to do something with the skill set that they've acquired from the college that would allow them to make a profit. So now, given where we are in terms of the legalities, especially in South Africa, what are the parameters with which people can operate under, especially after acquiring this knowledge from college?
Well, I think that we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here, because we have to wait until September this year to see if the government, how they change the law. And so at Fields of Green for All...
Do you think that they're going to change the law?
Yes, we do, but we have no idea what the regulations are going to look like. So at the moment, it's not only in our homes, it's in all private spaces. So we can have private clubs that actually operate within a non-profit system, that there's only exchange of the plant between the members of a private club. That is a possibility already, but it's quite
exchange
complicated.
Of the plant, not necessarily exchange for money, finances,
yes,
for the plant in itself. So it's literally it's like a barter system,
It's
right?
like a barter system.
Okay, great.
Yes, so that is already possible. It might be possible for private colleges to set up courses, and then within their private spaces they can grow the plants in order to teach their students. So that's possible right now. I doubt whether between now and September any of these proposed knowledge systems are going to be set up before September, because, you know, I think they've still got to employ the right staff, which will hopefully come from the legacy cannabis industry in South Africa. We have got an incredible amount of knowledge in South Africa already. You know, although it's illegal, doesn't mean to say that everybody's not learning everything they can from everybody around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're talking about the illegalities here, but there's also this notion that should I say, the trade or the sale of cannabis, anything related to cannabis, because you can go into a market and actually find cannabis oil, right? It's still limited to the elite few, and it's limited to pharmaceutical companies. In other words, the barriers to entry mean that it excludes a significant part of the population from actually making something profitable out of it, and it's only exempt for those individuals that would seek or would know how to navigate the system. Because let's be honest, the only reason that right now it's the trajectory that is flowing is because there's some kind of regulation that's been placed on it. So there is some kind of regulation, but that regulation, as well as the navigation of it, is limited to only a few who are able, till to this day, Martel, are able to make a profit out of it.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, we have brought out at Fields of Green for All a manifesto for cannabis regulation in South Africa, because we know that the government doesn't really know what they're doing. And in this manifesto, one of the main, it's only got 4 main chapters, and one of the main chapters is called Leaving Nobody Behind. And I think that's why the Office of the Premier in the Eastern Cape is to be applauded, because they are promoting, they're the only government department that has promoted training. Okay? They're the only government department that has promoted keeping the plant in the Eastern Cape. So they want to be able to train cultivators, they want to be able to train growers and processors and distributors of this plant. They want to be able to process the plant into medicine in the Eastern Cape. They want to keep it there as long as possible in the process in order to empower their communities. And you know, one of the things that we've said for years in Fields of Green for All is that what about the guy who sells the matchbox to put the food on the table? Because if that guy is not given the opportunity to develop his business and continue putting the food on the table with cannabis, then it's not legal. And we will go straight back to court to fight for evidence-based constitutional regulations, because we are in grave danger here in South Africa of it only being for the elite. Look at the CBD industry right now.
Yeah.
You go to any of these expos and conferences that are happening all around the world, and it's rich people who can afford that stall.
And should I even dare say that it's rich people with a certain type of shade of skin?
I think definitely a shade of skin. We call them the BEE refugees, because, you know, the cannabis space has created a little gap for those people who, particularly white males, who can't find work anywhere else. So they've gone into the cannabis business because they've been in the cannabis business
and very
for
quickly for that matter. So if the white male has been in the cannabis business for so long and they found a way to navigate and, should I say, to work within the system, right? And unfortunately that knowledge has been reserved for those privileged few. So now what happens to the small business? And as you're saying in the Eastern Cape, that a mother was able to feed her children as a result of having some kind of, you know, export, import, whatever it is, business through cannabis, because that should be, isn't that the plight of it? So what are you doing to advocate so that that woman is able to have access to markets as much as, or even better, the white male that is sitting, who's now taking literally advantage of a system that they know are very open to them and in them alone?
Absolutely. Well, what we're advocating for is the formation of what we're calling hubs within the rural areas, where the existing cannabis farmers, the existing cannabis distributors, because remember it's largely women who are getting onto taxis and bringing the cannabis from the rural areas into the cities all over South Africa. We want to empower women and we want to empower rural farmers through this system of hubs. Because if you go to any small town, and we've been to many, many all around South Africa, you will see that there is already an agricultural hub there. It is a system that works very well throughout South Africa. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then the farmers, the distributors, the processors can belong to these hubs. Hubs are not governed by the government. Hubs are regulated by the government, but they're controlled by the communities. Like you have a mealie hub, or like you have where everybody takes their wheat down there in the Swartland. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to create a community system where everybody can bring their produce. It can be quality tested, it can be graded. And it's actually the Zimbabwe tobacco model that we are basing this on, because we're seeing this system of co-ops and hubs starting to work in Zimbabwe after the terrible economic devastation there. So we would like to promote this as much as possible.
Martha, we're going to leave it there for this afternoon, but thanks a lot for joining us and shedding some light in terms of new innovations when it comes to the South African context. There you have it. It's a cannabis college that is being advocated. What more can you get from education from a college perspective?